The Lightning Fast Fantasy Football Podcast, sponsored by the Lockdown Defense Sports Network, is our weekly show dedicated to elite advice in standard leagues, PPR, and dynasty leagues. We are not guaranteeing you will win anything by our advice, but if you do, we want our cut. Enjoy the show. Are you tired of losing at fantasy football? Well, have a seat. You come to the right place. You're now tuned into the show where champions are made. Where speed meets strategy, elite advice, rapid fire analysis, and winning lineups are provided. It all happens faster than Tyreek Hill's 40 time. So strap in. Let's dominate your draft, crush your matchups, and take a ride all the way to that fantasy goal. Right here on the Lightning Fast Fantasy Football Podcast. Let's go. To all my heavy hitters and lockdown defenders, welcome to the Lightning Fast Fantasy Football Podcast. I am your host, Coach Defense, live and direct, bringing you the hottest and most up-and-coming Lightning Fast Fantasy Football Podcast show you are ever going to see on YouTube and all other stratospheres. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am going to solo mission tonight. First and foremost, I want to get the good news out the way. Our good brother, the real HG Alex Givens, is away from the podcast this week. He is celebrating. Him and his lovely wife are celebrating the birth of their newborn baby. So he's on sabbatical this week. He's on paternity leave. So we want to give him a quick shout out in that regard, man. Shout out to them and their beautiful baby. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So hopefully, Lord willing, he'll be back next week, once they get settled and everything starts to get, going with parent land. But we're going to do this thing with a solo mission tonight. So if you're watching this live, bring all your questions, bring all your analyst takes and things of that nature. We're going, I'm not going to say we're going to freestyle. We still got a structure to do, got a show to do, but, throw your questions out. We're going to get things going real big. We'll get those answers throughout the show. If you want to call in, and give us your takes offline, we have a hotline for the Lightning Fast Fantasy Football Podcast. The number's on the screen if you're watching this live. The number is 240-249-2220. Call in, leave us your information, give us your fantasy football questions, and we'll get back to you in short order. Please let us know how to get back to you, either social media or phone, and we'll get you that information. If you want to introduce it on live TV, live show, we can do that as well. So give us that information. We'll get that back to you as always. So call in the hotline if you have your questions when we're off air. But we're here for you, man. We're going to get things rolling. As always, we like to start the show off with our Lightning Fast Fantasy Football Weekly. We do sponsor 2 leagues in its entirety. We got a Dynasty League and a Redraft League. So we got that going for ourselves. So we give a quick recap on what goes on each and every week in regards to who's winning, who's struggling, things of that nature. I'm starting to hit my stride, just to give my own shameless plug. I'm starting to hit my stride. I'm doing pretty good in the Redraft League now. I think I won 3 or 4 straight. Won 2 straight in the Dynasty League after starting 0-4. So things is moving. We're starting to, get our feel for our teams, and things are starting to, percolate a little bit. So hopefully I can make a run. But I'm starting off, because we got a few people in the chat, that watch the show regularly that's in the league. So we want to get a quick shout out. But we'd like to do a recap of the league real quick. So starting off with the Redraft League. The Redraft League, we have the standings here from last week, the matchups. I went against Keese. We got a victory 133-113. Young RG got a victory 139-138 over Coach D Bev. That was the smallest margin of victory this week. Well, actually, maybe not, because we got Cool Kev, he was in the chat, going against Josh. I think he's 74-82 to 74-68. Wow, that was a squeaker. The real AG Alex Givens, as he continues to win, the Chiefs win. He won a fantasy, winning it with the baby, 102-79 against Coach Mike Dub. DZ, who keeps winning, he just the reigning champ and still undefeated, 126-91 against Five, who's on a little bit of a snide. And Cody, to round it out things, he got a victory against Kurt, so 91-70. So yeah, it was some good matchups this week. Definitely some good matchups this week. So yeah, we got that going for ourselves. All right, in the Dynasty League, we had it's funny because Nightmare came in and trolled me at the end of the last week's pod and told the fans how much he's gonna beat me by, and I actually got the victory, 98-88. So I'm on a 2-game winning streak now, 2-4. Go Farmer 155-141 against Panda. Alex ended up losing in the Dynasty League, however. He lost to Jacob 135-114. And S. Boyles is I think he's in the chat right now. Yes, indeed. He can't be stopped. 165-116 against B Shank. Drew Dudley against Riley Shank. Drew Dudley got a victory 161-118. And S. Rich got a victory 159-136 over Team Spice. So yeah, that's good stuff. That's good stuff. Yeah, S. Boyles in the chat. He said, y'all are all cooked until my bye weeks. He might be right. You might be right. I might have to check the bye weeks. Hopefully I play you that week. I can give you that L. Definitely give you that L. But we'll see. We'll see how things go, man. You are cooking. Now, it's hard to beat that team, man. I think you average about 150, 160 per matchup, man. So that's a tough task. That's a tough task. So we'll see how things flow, man. But yeah, some good competition, though. Definitely some good competition in both leagues. And we're definitely doing things pretty big over here. So yeah, we're going to keep things rolling. So we did. And he's cooking. He's the MVP candidate right now. That's for sure. That is for sure. Yeah. I mean, we drafted so early. We didn't have no inkling or no inclination of how things were going to roll. Had we drafted this in August, my team would look much different. I promise you that. But it's a Dynasty League. It's a long-term deal. It's not a short-term one. So we got to figure it out. But yeah, you definitely got a great team over there. They're definitely cooking at the right time. So hopefully they can keep that run going. All right. So let's float over to the week 7 matchups in the standings. So we got to see what's going to happen with that. Like I said, in the redraft league, DZ is still on top, 6-0. He hadn't lost yet. Young RG's right behind him at 5-1. I'm 4-2 now, holding down the 3 spot. 5 is at 4-2. He's holding down the 4 spot. Cody at 5 at 4-2 as well. Cool Cav at 6, right at that playoff spot. Keith's right behind him in 2-4. We got Coach Mike Dub at 2-4. Alex at 2-4. Kurt at 2-4, and D Bev and Josh rounded out the 1-5 crew at 11-12. So the matchup for this week, I'm going against Coach D Bev right now. So I'm looking favored to be in that one. But hey, you gotta get on the field and actually play before that victory is held. But I'm liking my chances this week. Young RG's going in against Keith. He's trying to hold down that 2 spot for himself. Josh is favored to beat Coach Mike Dub this week. That's gonna be an interesting matchup. Alice is going against Cool Cav. We got Cody going against 5, and we got DZ going against Kurt. So yeah, so will DZ remain undefeated? That is the question. He's favored to be the winner this week. We'll see how things roll. All right, so in the Dynasty League, of course, S. Boyles, an aforementioned young man in the chat, 6-0 in his run. We got S. Rich at 4-2. We got B Shanks at 3-3. This is a lot of parity in this league, I tell you, because S. Boyles is running away with it. And we got 1-4-2 team. Everybody else is 500 or below. That's crazy. That is crazy. So, like I said, B Shanks at 3-3, Riley Shanks at 3-3. The brothers are both 3-3. Drew Dudley at 3-3, Alex at 3-3, Jacob at 3-3, Spice at 3-3, Go Farmer, Nightmare, Panda, and myself all 2-4. That is insane. So yeah, that's going to be interesting in the next few weeks, see how those bye weeks fold and who gets the victories and who kind of ascends to the top, making that playoff run. It is crazy right now. The standings is ridiculous. And the points for, you're right. The points for is crazy too. I don't know how you amass that kind of points through 6 games. That is insane. But yeah, man, you're doing big things out there. We might have to spotlight your roster next week to see how you're doing it. Might have to do that. So yeah, the trade deadline is going to be the divider. I guarantee you that. You're right about that. We'll see how things flow. But yeah, those points for is wild. It's wild. So the matchups for this week, we got I'm going against B Shank. Jacob is going against Panda. We got Alex against Go Farmer. We got Nightmare against S. Boyle. That's gonna be an interesting one. Yeah, it looked like you're pretty good in favor in that one. We got Drew Dudley going against S. Rich and Spice going against Riley Shanks. So yeah, it's gonna be a good one. Gonna be a good one. So who's gonna be above 500 and who's still gonna be below? Because outside of two teams, 3 through 12, it's all fighting for it. All fighting for it. So yeah, so we'll see how things flow, man. We'll see how things flow. Well, yeah, great competition in both of these leagues, man. So we do want to keep things rolling for sure. For sure. All right, moving down the line, let's talk about the fantasy performance for this week. Who was doing pretty good, who was doing pretty bad, and things of that nature. Who was your top performers this week? Who was the worst performance? We'll get into those lists real quick, and we'll let you know who was the shiners. And if you had these guys in the league, you likely won your massive this week. So starting with the best performance, we had Patrick Mahomes as the leading dog, and I actually have him in 2 leagues, so I was happy about that performance. So Patrick Mahomes was the lead dog for quarterbacks at 31.5. Drake May, 2 weeks in a row, shining, looking like he's rounding out to be a good quarterback. So I'm liking what he's doing over there. 27.2. Jackson Dart on Thursday night, steamrolling the Eagles, 23.6. Daniel Jones, Indiana Jones, gotta give him respect now. And I'm gonna give him respect because they play my Chargers this week, so I'm gonna give him his respect. But hopefully we beat him. But yeah, Daniel Jones, 23.5. Jaden Daniels on Monday night. Ironically, it didn't seem like nobody played really good in that Commanders game, but Jaden had 22.6. That's interesting. So he rounds out the top 5. So the running backs, Bijan Robinson, who absolutely positively killed the Buffalo Bills defense on Monday night. Insane. 32.8. We got Rico Dowdle, who's on a 2-week tear. Him having that revenge in mindset against his old team, basically told the Cowboys to buckle it up, and they didn't. He got 31.9. 2 weeks in a row, he's been shining. Cam Scatterbro, 30 points on Thursday night. Him and Jackson Dart both round out the list this week. They balled out. Josh Jacobs, 29.5. So that was a good week for him. And Devon A. although they did lose to my Chargers, he did come through with 29 points. So he had a day. That's for sure. But luckily, we got the victory despite all that. And for wide receivers, George Pickens doing big things since CeeDee Lamb been out. I can't hate on that at all. 27.3. At the tops of this list, Drake London on Monday night. He did his thing. 26.8. And Jackson Smith-Njigba seems to be the number 1 receiver in Seattle. They don't miss DK Metcalf at all. I'm just going to say it that way. They don't miss him at all. 26.2 in his matchup, number 3 on the list. Keyshawn Butte, 23.8. He shined, caught 2 touchdown passes from Drake May. And Jamar Chase doing some little bit of garbage work, and I'm happy about it because, he's still scoring despite the quarterback changes. So hopefully they can kind of, right the ship and calm the waters with Joe Flacco being there, but we'll see. But yeah, so we got that. And Pedro, I'll get to your question in a minute. Hold tight. I'm going to get through this list and I'll get to your questions. Hold tight. All right, so the tight ends, we got Dallas Goedert, 21.5, balling out for Philly, despite the loss. Trey McBride, 17.5, with catch a pass from Jacoby Brissett, ironically. Tyler Warren keep doing Tyler Warren-like things with 15.3. Sam Laporta finally got on the list. He's been on the naughty list a lot of this time period in fantasy. He balled out with 14. And Michael Mayer, filling in for Brock Bowers, came in with 13.5. So that was a pretty good list. Pretty good list. And before I get to the defense, we'll see what Pedro got from a question perspective. I got to trade. I gave away Bijan and I get Saquon, Rashee Rice, and Jake Ferguson. Should I take it? So you're trading away Bijan, you get Saquon. Rashee Rice and Jake Ferguson. So you're trading away Bijan for Saquon, Rashid, and Jake Ferguson? Ooh, that's a good one. It really just depends on who your wide receivers are, but that's not bad. That's not bad. Jake Ferguson seems to be a consistent target from a tight end perspective. Rashee Rice is likely going to be the number 1 guy once he comes into the Chiefs lineup this week. Now, I will say they probably bring him along slow. I won't expect immediate return on it. Week 1, I mean, stranger things have happened, but the only thing that kind of gives me pause about the Saquon Barkley thing is that they have trouble running the ball with Philly right now. But I mean, if you need a better tight end and a better receiver, it's a good trade, in my opinion. I mean, Bijan is Bijan now. That's not sully his name in any way. And he's the clearly number 1, fantasy running back right now. But if Saquon can figure it out in Philly, I mean, he's not. I mean, because I have him on one of my teams. He's not doing terrible, but he's not doing Saquon-like things, and he's still trying to figure some things out with the offensive coordinator. But if you have a voided receiver and tight end, that's a good deal for you. That's a good deal for you. Trading away 1 player for 3. Yeah, I like that move. I definitely like that move if you're hurting your wide receiver and tight end. If you have an abundance of wide receiver and tight end, then I would keep Bijan. in my opinion. So this all just depends on who you have. But if I'm hurting and I'm void in the receiver in the tight end room, and I don't have guys that can really produce for me week to week, and I can get good production out of Jake Ferguson and Rashee Rice, and still have Saquon kind of be close to what Bijan is doing at some points in the season, yeah, I would make the move. I would definitely make the move. So yeah, I hope that answered your question. Please, keep those questions rolling, and we'll get them answered throughout the show. But flowing over to the defense for best performers, we got the Los Angeles Rams coming in with 17 points against the hapless Ravens. I mean, they had a backup to the backup. I mean, they played Cooper Rush and Tyler Huntley in that game, and it was just a mess in the rain. So it was just crazy all the way around, but they did get the victory, 17 points for them. The Raiders going against the crazy Titans, who ended up getting their coach fired behind this. So yeah, they came in with 16. The Denver Broncos still doing big things out there, even despite the ups and downs of the offense. The defense is playing masterful ball right now. They came in with 13. Tampa Bay Buccaneers got 11 points out of their defense, and the Seattle Seahawks, I think they're overall the top defense right now in fantasy scoring, come through with 11. So they've been on the list a lot. So the kickers, we had Eddie Pinheiro, who came in with 18. It's funny because Jake Moody's on this list too, and that's their former kicker. He was on this list, and they still had Eddie Pinheiro at the top, so that's interesting dynamic there. But Cameron Dicker sandwiched between those guys, they were 17. Jake Moody was 16, Blake Groupie with 16, and Chris Boswell with 15. Despite the choppy turf in Pittsburgh, he still got some good kicks off and ended up with 15 points. So if you had any of these guys, from a fantasy perspective on your team, you likely had a good week. But yes, sometimes, you have good weeks and sometimes you have bad weeks. So we got to talk about the good and the bad. So, it's just some guys that make you, make you want to bang your head against the wall and say,
"You're killing me, Smalls."
Some guys make you say they're killing me, Smalls. Who are your worst performers of the week? So if these guys are on your team, and we'll talk about some put up or shut ups here in this show a little bit later, but if these guys are on your team and they're constantly letting you down, you might want to think about going other ways. But here's your worst performers of the week. So who was the worst performers for week 6? It's a rough list. It's a rough list, and some repeat offenders as well. You got Justin Fields on this list at 4.9. That's pretty bad. He was the top worst performer. Cam Ward is one of those lists practically every week with 7.9. Dylan Gabriel came down to earth from his first week performance, his first start, and he came down to 8.8. Matt Stafford, ironically, again, ugly game in Baltimore with 9.3, but he still got a dub. Tua Tagovailoa struggled against the Chargers with 9.6, so that was interesting. He had 3 picks in that game. That's largely due to that. Running backs, Bill Krosky-Murray didn't do much in the rain against the Chicago Bears at 5.3. Kenneth Walker came in with 4.2, which is interesting because they typically are pretty good running the football. J.K. Dobbins 4 in that overseas game. There was a lot of wasn't a lot of offense being played in that overseas game. Let's just put it that way. It was rough watch. And the name I didn't really think I ever see on this list is Quinshon Judkins, 3.6, running for the Browns. That's interesting. He's on this list. And Ramondre Stevenson, 1.8. Still pounding the table on why you're not giving the ball to Trayvon Henderson more, but he's on this list and not performing much and doing anything in the run game. So he's on the list at 1.8. So yeah, it was a rough week for some running backs, man, that typically do pretty well. Wide receivers, we got Brandon Cooks on the list with 2.6. Keon Coleman, who outside of that first week performance hadn't done much, and I had high hopes for him. I picked him up in fantasy. I drafted him, but I quickly dropped him for better pastures. I think I dropped him for Jordan Addison, and I'm not looking back. 2.6 for him. Cortland Sutton, again, that overseas game, nobody did much offensively. 2.6 for him. Troy Franklin on the same vein, 1.6. I'm disappointed in him. He had high hopes for being Bo Nix's teammate in college. I thought they would have more chemistry, but they can't seem to get it together. And Juwan Jennings, although he played, hurt, I think he has 5 broken ribs. He was out there. They had projected for him to score between 10 and 12 points this week, and he got 1.2. I guess they missed the decimal point. He said 12, but I think they missed the decimal point. It mean 1.2 instead of 12.0. So yeah, he had a rough week. That's for sure. And Mr. Consistently irrelevant, Kyle Pitts Sr., 3.3 for Atlanta. We knew there was a Drake London and Bijan show in this particular space, but Kyle Pitts, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry, he's been on this list of worst performers way too much. So that's what you have from him, 3.3. And I had to put Coastal Lovin on his list because I said earlier in the week on a short that I thought he might have a breakout game. And I realized it was going to be a monsoon rainstorm in Washington. I thought the rain would be gone by Monday night, but it hung around to Tuesday. And then it was a nasty game, and he didn't do much. And he scored 2.1 points in his comeback game because he was hurt the last time they played. Pat Fryermuth 1.6. I don't know what's going on with him. Him and Aaron Rodgers can't seem to get on the same shit of music because he won't throw him the ball at all. It's rough. It's rough. You look at his week-to-week stats, it's brutal. Calvin Austin and DK Metcalf get all the targets, and Pat Fryermuth gets nothing. That might be a thing with Aaron Rodgers, too, if you think about it. What tight end has caught passes from Aaron Rodgers on a consistent basis, and had flourishing seasons? That might be a thing. But, we'll maybe address that another day. But I'm interested to see what's happening with Pat Fryermuth. Mason Taylor, who everybody had on their list as being a sleeper tight end this week. Again, with the hapless Jets, can't seem to do anything. 0.7. And then Juwan Johnson, who has been a stalwart for fantasy for most weeks, he ended up on the list with 0.5. Catching passes from Spencer Rattler, or not catching passes for that matter. But yeah, ugly list, man, ugly list. So to round it out with the defense and kickers, Eagles with 1 against the Giants. They ran all over them and passed all over them, did whatever they want. The Saints with 1. We expect that. They're a pretty bad team. 49ers losing Fred Warner and Bosa before now, but losing Fred Warner in that game, they end up with 0. Carolina Panthers ended up with 0 going against the Cowboys, although they did get the victory. That was a shootout. And the Browns, who I'm very shocked to see on this list because they've been a really good fantasy defense this season, despite their woes on offense and quarterback, they came in with 0. So that was an interesting revelation this week in week 6. So hopefully they can bounce that back. But that's interesting to see the Browns on this list. Getting to the kickers, it wasn't horrible. We can need negatives and zeros this week, but it was still pretty bad for some kickers. Baltimore, Buffalo, and in general, Detroit as well. I didn't expect to see those kickers on this list, but they're here. Jake Bates with 5, Josh Carty with 5, Jude McAnthony, I hope I didn't butcher that too bad, 4 with the Giants, although they had a lot of points. They didn't kick a lot of field goals, got a lot of touchdowns. Tyler Loop from the Ravens, 3. And then Matt Prater from the Buffalo Bills with 2. They just couldn't get out of neutral in Atlanta over the week, Monday night. So, it was just a brutal watch. Just a brutal watch altogether. But, that's what you have. So, those are your fantasy performance week in and week out for best and worst. So, hopefully we'll have some better news for you next week when it comes down to who did good and who did bad. All right, moving on down the line. Let's talk about bye weeks real quick. We're in week 7 coming up. So, the Ravens and the Buffalo Bills are on bye weeks this week. So if you have any Ravens on your team, Lamar Jackson, who's coming back off injury next week, when they come back to playing, Derrick Henry, for instance, their defense, anybody, Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, Zay Flowers, any of those guys are going to be off the schneid this week, as well as Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen, James Cook, Khalil Shakir, maybe Keon Coleman. I don't recommend that, but some people might have him. Dalton Kincaid, who's injured on top of it being on bye, so hopefully he'll bounce back when he come back. So those 2 teams on bye this week, and looking ahead to next week, week 8 is going to be a brutal bye week. We got a lot of teams on byes on week 8. I think that's the most we're going to have this season because I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams next week going to be on byes. So get your wins this week because it's going to be a lot of teams on byes next week. It's going to be a lot of mixing and matching, and we'll bring it all live to you and who you can add and who you can drop next week. But week 8 is going to be a crucial week to if you can pull out a victory in week 8 despite all those bye weeks, you're doing pretty good for yourself. For week 7, we only got 2 teams. So all right, so moving on down the line, talk about injuries and replacements. Our segment called the replacements, injuries, updates, and roster moves. So who's newly hurt, who's still hurt, who's going to not play this week, who's going to play. Let's get into all of that, and let's find out who we can replace them with. So for starters, let's talk about the injured. And I'll move my head out the way, pause, so we can get a clear look at this list. But actually, I'll just bring it up. Yeah, here we go. So Kyler Murray, who practiced in a limited role today. We get some updated news after we do this graphic a little bit. So I'll try to give you as much up-to-date information as I have on these people and what they're going to do this week. But here's the list for going into week 7. So like I said, Kyler Murray is hurt, but he practiced today at a limited role. So we have that. Then we got Brock Purdy, who did once again practice today in a limited role. It's interesting about Mac Jones in their situation because I do believe that they're in a unique situation when it comes down to Brock Purdy's status and how Mac Jones is playing. If Mac Jones is still healthy, and he's still good to go in a sense from a quote unquote you know uh playing status. His playing status is still good. He can still play. I would still continue to play Mac Jones and hope that I can get Brock Purdy completely healthy, because what they did last time, they rushed him back, and they rushed him back, and it was definitely not ready to come back, and he got hurt again. So I would argue that, from his perspective, I would definitely, go ahead and sit him as long as I possibly can. But we'll see what Shanahan and those boys think they want to do in that space. But I would say that I would hedge my bet on Brock Purdy maybe not playing one more week. One more week. And if we look back at the bye weeks real quick, let's look back at that graphic. San Francisco is not on a bye until, let's see, where are they? They don't got a bye until week 14. So yeah, I would rest Purdy if I can. I will rest him as long as I possibly can and get as many wins out of Mac Jones as I possibly can, and then get him to the point where he's fully healthy, and then throw him back out there when he's ready. But yeah, I wouldn't rush him back out there until he's ready, in my personal opinion. Now, JJ McCarthy, they're back off bye week. He's practicing again in a limited role this week. So he is him and Carson Wentz are both up and they're both healthy, quote unquote. So it's a question of who they're going to play. It's interesting because the Carson Wentz is going to be going against his old team. I kind of like their revenge factor. And is JJ ready to take the reins back and play solid football for the Vikings? That is the question. So I'm going to be monitoring this pretty closely. But I would not bank on Carson Wentz or JJ McCarthy being my starter if I had my choice. Because I'm not sure he's going to play. I'm not sure where not McCarthy, but Kevin O'Donnell's leaning. I think that it just depends on who he feel like is healthier. Maybe you want to give JJ McCarthy another week. Don't want to rush him back, but we'll see. But I'm very curious to see how they treat this, because it could be Carson Wentz or JJ McCarthy at this point, because they both are practicing, and I think they both had the opportunity to play. It's just who. So Chuba Hubbard is the only lone running back this of noteworthiness. This a quote unquote fantasy star that could be affected by injury. But he is back off his calf issue, practicing in a limited role. And the coach said today that him and Rico Dowdle are going to split carries. So that's even if he's going to play, if he's going to split carries and literally have a 50-50 backfield, that's something that you need to consider in playing Chuba Hubbard at this point. Because people have been eating good off Rico Dowdle for the last 2 weeks, but his production and Chuba is going to get cut in half, most likely. So it could be a crapshoot on who's going to get what and when. So can you bank on that either? So if you have better pastures at running back, I will go with the more stability, the more stable pick versus the Chuba Hubbard and Rico Dowdle situation, where you may be good, you may not be. It's feast or famine. It really is feast or famine. So we'll see how that goes. CeeDee Lamb practicing. He was slated to practice today, so it's an outside chance that he may play this week. They do play the Commanders. That's their rivalry game. They're the rivalry week. So I would argue that he might play. Just to kind of get a quick revenge on the Commanders. So I'll look out for that. Quentin Johnson's back practicing. He is definitely should play this week against the Colts. So we'll see how that flows. Let's see what TS got here. So we got Devontae Smith with T. Higgins this week. That's a good one. That is a good one. Let me see here. So let's treat this. Let's look at this from a matchup perspective. So the Eagles are playing the Vikings, right? And the Bengals are playing the Steelers. Now, holistically, I like the Steelers' defense better, especially with their pass rush. The Vikings' defense is really savvy with Brian Flores coaching it. But the Eagles' offense, I really don't like. If I had to choose between the two, I would go see Higgins. I think that if nothing else, if the Steelers are up on the Bengals, most likely the Bengals will be playing from behind, which means they're going to throw the ball a lot. So I would definitely go with T. Higgins more so than Devonta Smith. Because I do believe that T. Higgins would, from a volume, especially if this is a PPR league, from a volume and catch perspective and a touchdown perspective, I would definitely go T. Higgins over Devontae. Because I don't like what the Eagles' offense is looking like right now. They can't seem to run. They're forcing the pass. Their offensive coordinator is still trying to figure things out. That's another thing. So I would definitely say T. Higgins over Devontae Smith if I can help it, for sure. All right, but getting back to the injuries real quick, we got Emeka Egbuka who's on a list. He's likely not going to play. He's a hamstring issue. He might be out 2 to 3 weeks for sure. So I would definitely, although he's been killing it in fantasy for me and a lot of other people, you're gonna have to sit him for a few weeks. They are talking IR, but probably a 2 to 3 week injury. And Mike Evans is on this list as well. He's still not back, and then Chris Godwin's likely doubtful. He hadn't played really yet, so they're down to their 4th and 5th receiver already. But ironically, I still like their chances this week to upset the who they play this week. Let me look at the schedule real quick. They play Lions. So yeah, I'm still looking at them to upset the Lions. So we'll see. They just Baker just playing out of his mind. I'm just on that train. But yeah, Mecca Booker's not gonna play this week, most likely. Terry McLaurin is likely to play. However, so she should be up for the Commanders, which just means I think that's why CeeDee Lamb plays. With Terry playing and Jaden healthy, they're playing in Dallas, so there's no weather involved. I think that CeeDee Lamb is gonna force his way on the field some kind of way to try to help his team out. So I like CeeDee Lamb's chances, hopefully from my fantasy perspective and for y'all's perspective as well, if you have them. But yeah, I definitely like CeeDee Lamb to play because I think Terry's gonna play. Like I said earlier, Mike Evans is out. I think he got another week or two before he gets back on the field. Marvin Harrison is in concussion protocol. He took a really bad hit to his head in the game on Sunday. So, and anytime somebody goes to the locker room for concussion protocol, it's likely severe. And I think he's going to be out of at least this week, maybe next. It just depends on how his recovery goes. But I guarantee he's going to not play this week, most likely. Most likely. Ricky Pearsall is another one that's on the list. That he was a late scratch on Sunday, so he has a better chance to play this week. So I'm liking his chance to get him feel finally to catch Patrick for either Mac Jones or Brock Purdy, but I would say I think it's going to be Mac Jones. DJ Moore got sent to the hospital on Monday night as a precaution, but they did release him. With them, having a short week, they might sit him this week. So I would look for him to maybe not play this week potentially. So probably the Roman Doomsday and Luther Burden show. Juwan Jennings got cracked ribs. He's playing with that, and that's not going to heal no time soon. So he's going to be a pain management, a guy for the next few weeks. So I would even though he's probably going to play, I would argue that he's going to have a dip in production, in my opinion, especially with Ricky Pearsall coming back. So I would keep my eye on that. Darius Slayton, he's probable with an injury, but I think he should play along with Tutu Atwell. I think they both play, but they're banged up. So you always got to carry the idea that if they do play, they're likely going to have a dip in production. Just a quick tip in that sense. But tight ends, we got George Kittle and David Njoku. Kittle has a slight chance of playing this week. He did come off IR designation. I got to verify that, but if not this week, definitely next week. I think he'll be back on the field. And David Njoku is banged up. And for him, it's weird because Harold Fanning is starting to make waves in Cleveland. So if he does not play, he's likely going to end up losing his job, most likely. So he's probably going to force his way onto the field some kind of way, at least in a limited capacity, to be out there, in my personal opinion. But he is banged up. So if he does play, look for Harold Fanning more so than him in that space. But yeah, he definitely is a probable start. He's a probable start, but I would definitely believe that he's going to dip in production if he is on the field. If Fanning doesn't vulture his targets for sure. All right, so let's talk about who's going to fill in those roles for them in spaces that you may need help in guys that are either on buys or injured. So for quarterbacks, for starters there, I think Bryce Young seems to be playing better now, playing pretty good football. So if you need a quarterback or a super flex in your dynasty leagues and things of that nature, Bryce Young is a good pickup. Michael Penix looked very efficient, at least for 3/4 of the game on Monday. I like him. Bryce Young is only rostered in about 25% of leagues, and Michael Penix is rostered about 21. So I think they're pretty much available across most leagues. Joe Flacco, he's only 9% rostered in most leagues. He's another pickup. And then, just Joe Flacco with those receivers alone, it's almost like he has no choice but to be productive. Him being a veteran, I think that he should be, a good ad if you need a super flex or just a bye week quarterback. So he should be a good ad for you if you have a deep need for quarterback. Running backs, Kamani Vidal is clearly showed it after 1 week that he's going to be the lead dog in LA for the Chargers. He's rostered in 35% of leagues, so he should be available in certain aspects of it. So if he is there for you, go pick him up. Bam Knight for the Cardinals, he's only rostered in 9% of leagues. So if he's there as an ad or in addition to Michael Carter, because Amari DeMarcado is in the doghouse, so I think that Bam Knight and Michael Carter are going to be the guys running the ball in Arizona. And Tyler Algier, they run the ball so much in Atlanta that Tyler Algier, although he's rostered in 35% of leagues, he's still a good ad because he's going to be a touchdown machine and he's going to get all the carries that Bijan doesn't. So if they want to run the ball 40 times, he's going to touch the ball probably 15. So if you give him 15 touches and a couple goal line carries, that's going to be a good day for fantasy, in my opinion. So yeah, I would definitely add Tyler Algier as a backup role or flex option. Wide receivers, you got Trey Tucker, who's Ironically enough, because Jacoby Myers out there and Brock Burr is not playing for the foreseeable future, in my opinion. He's a great ad. I mean, he went off a 41 week and had a mediocre week last week, but he had another week 2 weeks ago. But this week he went off again. He's rostered in about 54% of the league, so it's a 50-50 chance, a little bit less that he's available. But if he is, grab him as a flex option. Keshawn Butte was only rostered in 7% of leagues, ironically. He seems to be finding his stride with Drake May, and they're starting to flourish. So Keyshawn Butte is another good wide receiver pickup for your injuries, for your Emeka Bukas or your Mike Evans and things of that nature. And Christian Kirk, who's rostered in about 34% of leagues. The Texans are coming off a bye. So hopefully they figure things out with a little bit for their protection and their wide receiver core. So hopefully they can run better offense. And hopefully Christian Kirk can be a good flex option for you as well as a wide receiver. And in tight ends, I talk about Harold Fanning, altering all kinds of targets from Darren Njoku, being way more productive. Seems like it's a rookie thing with him and Theo Johnson. They're doing well for each other. Harold Fanning is rostered about 35% of the league, so you can pick him up if he's available. Theo Johnson seems to be the number one receiving target for Jackson Dart, so I would pick him up. He's only rostered in 18% of leagues. And AJ Barner, all he does is score. That's all he does. He might get 4 targets, and 2 of them might be touchdowns. That's literally the trend for the last 3 to 4 weeks. He's killing. And he's only rostered about 21% of leagues. So if AJ Barner's out there, you need a tight end field, or if guys that just aren't doing it for you from a tight end perspective, your Sam Laportas, your Dalton Schultz, or George Kittle, you have him, he's hurt, things of that nature. If those guys aren't doing things for you, Dawson Kincaid is another one. If they're not doing it for you, if you need a fill in, go get AJ Barner because he's scoring a lot of points in fantasy. Just check his resume. So we'll see how things go in that space, but I'm liking these fill-ins, so hopefully those replacements can do you some solids, because we got a decent bye week this week, we got a really heavy one next week. So get ahead of the curve. Get it ahead of the curve if you can, and get these guys on your roster now because it's going to be a frenzy for roster ads next week. The waiver wire next week is going to be heavy. I promise you that. With I think I said 6 or 7 teams on the buys, maybe 8. So yeah, it's going to be a lot. So yeah, get these guys now before it's too late. All right. Let's move on down the line. Let's talk about some put up or shut up times for a certain roster mates, some of your roster mates, some of your high draft picks, some guys that haven't been producing for you, although you draft them in the first 3 to 4 rounds. They just haven't put up numbers for you. And it's getting to the point where I think we got like 8 weeks away from playoffs. Because typically most people playoffs start around week 14 and we're going to week 7. So yeah, we got about 8 more games in fantasy football before we get to the playoffs. 7 to 8 more games. Depending on how your league is set up. So is it really put up a shut-up time at the halfway mark for certain guys? So we drop the duds. The guys are underperforming. Should we cut bait? Should we not? So I'm going to give you a list of a few guys that are on my radar that I think that you should, that are underperforming. Let's put it like that. That are underperforming, and should you or should you not drop them, based upon their quote-unquote, I guess you can say projections, how they're going to play fantasy football for the next 3 to 4 weeks. So we're going to start off with the quarterbacks. CJ Stroud hasn't been, playing great football. A lot of people are questioning his regression because he's in year 3. And they say most quarterbacks in year 3 typically hit their stride and typically get comfortable and they are flourishing by year 3. And it seems like CJ Stroud is going backwards. He had a good rookie campaign. He had a so-so sophomore campaign, and his year 3 hasn't been great. Now, a lot of that can be attributed to the idea of the O-line being different. I'm not going to say it's trash, but it's different. So his protection and his ability to trust that has been an issue, right? It's been an issue. So I would say that is CJ Stroud, from a fantasy perspective, is he going to be somebody that you drop or move on from? That is the question. So I would say I will hold on CJ Stroud, and this is why, because he has I think the 3rd or 4th best quarterback friendly matchups going forward. From a 5-star rating to down to 2 stars, I would say that actually I lie, I had that backwards. He has a 2-star rating that's for quarterback matchups, so he's going to have a lot of quarterback not friendly matchups going forward. So yeah, CJ Stroud might be a streaming option for a bye week, but I wouldn't make him my week-to-week starter at this point because I had it flipped because Michael Penix is actually the favorable one. Michael Penix is the favorable one. He has great matchups going forward, and he seemed to be hitting his stride with his receivers. Whereas CJ Stroud, where he's coming off a bye week, but yet his matchups going forward are going to be really we really has real big time struggles against defenses going into the latter part of the season. So I would say that CJ Stroud is a maybe a move on from conversation, but Michael Penix is definitely a hold. He has, had up and down moments this season, but I think that Michael Penix should be a guy that you can hold on to and keep him as your backup quarterback, if nothing else. If he's not your starter, I would definitely keep Michael Penix as a backup because I think that he can generate points for you going forward. I think that him and Drake May are really fighting their vibe. And I do think that they're going to especially with their run game working really well, that's going to open up the play action game and things of that nature and allow him to get the ball down the field. And Darnell Mooney is another one that seemed to be flourishing in the offense now too as well. So I think Michael Penix is a hold. I would definitely hold on Michael Penix and keep him, but I might move over to CJ Stroud. Or I'm only keeping CJ Stroud for backup purposes only when he might have a decent matchup 1 week. But holistically, for the next 7 games, CJ Stroud has a really tough matchup quarterback wise. Like the quarterback struggle against most defenses he's going to face, is my point. So I think that CJ Stroud is going to be on a struggle bus, but I think Michael Penix is going to flourish. Now, running backs. A lot of people drafted Chase Brown high. And of course, we can attribute a lot of these struggles to the idea that, Joe Flacco has been hurt. Not Joe Flacco, excuse me. Joe Burrow's been hurt. They got Joe Flacco now. So having Joe Flacco versus having Joe Burrow is a different conversation, obviously. In the running game, but that O-line just hadn't seemed to be working. So yeah, I'm not liking Chase Brown's production, in all honesty. Him or Alvin Kamara, to be honest with you. Now, they do say that Chase Brown's, strength of schedule for running backs is high going forward. But there's no Joe Burrow in this conversation. There's Joe Flacco. So, and again, the defense is terrible. So they're going to be playing from behind a lot. So I would argue that if I could move on or trade Alvin Kamara or Chase Brown at this point, I would do it. I would do it because there's trade rumors swirling around Kamara, although he claims he wants to be a Saint, but everybody says that until they trade it. Chase Brown doesn't seem to be producing at all, and they're playing from behind a lot, so they got to throw the ball more. So he's not much of a running threat, more of a receiving threat. And of course, when it comes to receiving threats, the pecking order is there's Chase, there's Higgins, there's Chase again, then there's Chase Brown or the tight end, but the tight end's hurt. So I would argue that he's like the 4th option in the pass game. So yeah, I would argue that that if you can move on to trade those 2 guys, I would. I think it's time to shut up with those guys. I would move on. Now, getting to wide receivers, AJ Brown. AJ Brown hasn't been doing well. And T has asked earlier about the idea of Devontae Smith or T Higgins. I don't like AJ Brown or Devontae Smith right now. I don't like the way the offense is throwing the ball. I think they're trying to force things to keep them happy. They should be leaning more so on the running game, because that's where they cut their teeth at to win a Super Bowl. So they really should stick to the rivers and lakes that they used to, in my opinion. But it's still a topsy-turvy conversation over there. I don't like what they're doing from the offensive perspective. So I would argue that if you could trade, and get some good diary for AJ Brown, I might do it. It just depends on what the return is, because there's a 3-star rating on the idea that AJ Brown has a good matchup going forward. So that's really like kind of in the middle. With a struggling offense, a kind of a decent but not great matchup, friendly offense from a wide receiver perspective going forward for the next 7 to 8 games, I'm not liking AJ Brown's production. I'm really not. I know you drafted him high, but if you can convince somebody to take him and get some good diary back from him, I would do it. Brian Thomas Jr. is another conversation. A lot of people drafted him high. I know I did. He's been up and down for me, although he had a good week last week. But he had some drop issues and things of that nature, some connection problems and communication problems with Trevor Lawrence. So is Brian Thomas one? And he's another one that's kind of in the middle with a 3-star rating when it comes down to his matchups. So he's kind of in the middle of the pack. He's not high, not low. But I would trust Brian Thomas more so than I trust AJ Brown, because I think there's a really good offense they got flowing in Jacksonville. I like what Leon Cole is doing with the run game, and that's marrying up what they're doing in the pass game. Now, outside of the offense running pretty well, I'm just not confident in their defense and or their clock management and just some nuancey things with the coaching staff. So that's why they have these issues where they lose games they're not supposed to. But I will argue that if they do have that dysfunction, they will be passing the ball a lot. So that does, for me, give them a saving grace for Brian Thomas Jr. So I would hold on Brian Thomas Jr. If you had, unless you got a really sweet deal in return to trade him. But I would trade AJ Brown, but I would definitely move on. I would trade AJ Brown and move on from him, but I would keep Brian Thomas. Now, CJ Hawkinson and Brock Bowers, the interesting conversation because CJ Hawkinson is very talented, but with their issues at quarterback, JJ McCarthy not looking good. Carson Wentz is a journey guy. Um, yeah, I'm kind of confused on what they're doing with TJ Hawkinson. In all honesty, I'm actually going to the extreme of sitting TJ Hawkinson in favor of Harry Fanning this week. I think I like Harry Fanning's upside right now. And TJ Hawkinson with their revolving door that is quarterback for them. I don't know. He hasn't been produced, hadn't been really getting the ball, hadn't been targeted either. So if you could sell somebody high on TJ Hawkinson, man, I would do it. In all honesty. Same thing with Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers was drafted sometimes in the first and second round for some people's drafts because of the volume he garnered last year. But I would say that Brock Bowers' injury concerns me. I really do think that's an issue. And if they're smart, they would sit him until he's healthy, whenever that is. I mean, because I think he's just doing more and more damage with the more he tries to practice and the more he tries to play. And with Michael Mayer doing them a solid in the pass game without him, I think you have a embarrassment of riches at tight end, and I would say that I would sit him until he's healthy. Which again, going back to the fantasy conversation, I believe that he doesn't really, garner any value for you from a fantasy perspective. So I would either trade him or just sit him deep on my bench, and hopefully, if your league is set up where a person that's out can be put in IR, I will put him in IR to save yourself a roster spot. Or if you convince somebody that's going to trade him, think he's going to come back any moment and light it up, trade him. Because I think he's going to sit for at least maybe 2 to 3 more weeks at least. And again, if he's put up a shut up time and we're at the halfway point of fantasy football, I really believe that if he's going to be out 2 to 3 weeks, he's not going to help you. Either get some form and move him and have somebody come in and can produce for you when you win you these games now, or just sit him deep on your bench or your IR spot. And hopefully when he comes back, he can produce. But I do believe that they're smart. They will sit him enough to get him fully healthy for a stretch run, whatever the Raiders are going to be in that stretch run, and don't burn your asset because he's probably their best player on offense, him and Jensen. So I would argue that I'm not going to rush him out and rush him back too fast if I'm Pete Carroll. So for fantasy perspectives, I would definitely say that he was definitely not going to be valuable for you for the next 2 to 3 weeks, and that's going to burn you, because we'll be in week 10, 11 by then. And it's really go time then. It's really go time then. So I'll argue that either sell him or put him deep on your IR spot, and just kind of tuck him away until it's time to bring him back out when he's healthy. So that's what I have for you. Please drop your questions on anytime online or in the chat or in the comment section if you watch this on replay. Tell me how you feel about these guys, but I definitely am lukewarm on pretty much all of them except for Penix and Brian Thomas. I really believe that if you could trade most of these guys away, I would definitely say it's time to move on. And if you have questions about any other guys that you think you maybe should move on from or keep, drop them in the comments. You can drop us a line on our hotline number, or hit us up on socials, and we'll get those question answers for you as well. All right, so let's talk about the schedule real quick. Games of the week. So there's some games on here that I want to talk about. That have some high fantasy potential. Could be one sided or could be both. There's one game especially I think it might end up being a shootout. I think this Commanders Cowboys game is going to be a shootout. I think that I talked about this earlier. I think CeeDee Lamb and Terry McLaurin are both going to play. I think going to be a lot of points given up in Dallas. I think it's going to be a shootout. It's going to harken back to maybe what the Seahawks and the Buccaneers did a couple of weeks ago. A 34-30 type game. It could be about 50 to 60 points scored between the two teams. So if you got Cowboys or Commanders on your team, I would definitely lean towards starting them all if you can. I mean, I'm not saying it start Jaden Terry and Bill Merritt, but I'll at least start 1 or 2 of those guys for sure. Or if you got CeeDee Lamb on one end, you got like me. I got CeeDee Lamb on one end. I got Bill Krosky Merritt on the other end. I'm starting both. I think there's gonna be a lot of points scored in that game. It's definitely gonna be some points scored in that game for sure. I'm kind of considering the Monday Night Football game against the Buccaneers and Lions could be high scoring because it just doesn't seem. With Baker Mayfield doesn't care who the receiver is. He's just throwing the ball on and you just got to catch it. You just got to catch it for sure. I do believe that it's going to be some points scored in Detroit as well. On turf, inside, no weather. I do believe it's going to be some points scored in that for sure. Got a quick question from Ezekiel Ruiz. Watson or Coker? Who's the better stash? Now, what Watson are we talking about here? Are we talking to? I know it's Jalen Coker we're talking about, but what Watson are we talking about? That Deshaun Watson? I'm missing on the Watson. But even if it is Deshaun Watson, I'm going Jalen Coker. because I'm not sure that Deshaun Watson plays any more downs for the Browns. I know that rhymes, but yeah, I think that's the case. That's the case. Christian Watson. Yes. Okay. Okay. Oh, whew. Whew. I thought you were talking about Deshaun Watson. I'm sorry. I almost forgot about Christian Watson. He's a forgotten man in Green Bay because of Matthew Golden and Romeo Dobbs' ascension, right? And look at Tucker Craft. That's a good one. I'm gonna say Jalen Coker still because I don't like Christian Watson's injury history, right? And he's coming off a gruesome knee injury, like he has an ACL injury, and he is a very fast and long receiver, right? So he puts a lot of torque on them legs. So I would argue that he could get injured again. And they always say that when you come off an ACL injury, you not yourself until year 2. So I think Jalen Coker might be a better stash. And I think that him and Bryce Young really had a better connection than Jordan Love and Christian Watson did before they both got hurt. So I would argue that I would stash Jalen Coker before I stash Christian Watson. But they're not bad options either way to stash. They're not bad options either way. But I think that Jalen Coker would be the first guy I would pick over Christian Watson because Christian Watson's injury history give me pause. He's been hurt too much. And with Matthew Golden being their first round pick, he's gonna be their number one guy. Romeo Dobbs gonna be there too. Tucker Kraft's eating up a lot of volume. He might be the odd man out, and he still got Jaden Reed come back. Jaden Reed's gonna come back at some point, and he's gonna be healthy. He's more productive than Watson. So I do believe that Ted McMillan and Jalen Coker should be the future in Carolina. So I'm going with Jalen Coker for sure. All right, so getting back to these games here. So, like I said, the Washington Commanders and the Cowboys game was gonna be a lot of points scored. I do believe the Buccaneers and the Lions are gonna light up as well. I do like that matchup. So if you got Buccaneers in your lineup, Tez Johnson, Kate Otten, Rashad White and Sean Tucker, the running backs, Baker Mayfield, of course. I would say that Jahmyr Gibbs should have a pretty good game. Jared Goff gonna be indoors, so he should have a good one. So yeah, if you got Buccaneers or Lions in that matchup, I think those are good. So, but going back up to the top, I like Jalen Warren against the Bengals defense. I like that option. I think Joe Flacco is going to air it out a lot, and if they did get down early, garbage time for T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. So I like that. The Rams against the Jaguars in London might be a stay away game for me. I'm not gonna lie. If you got Rams or Jaguars, I would hedge my bet this week because one, London games seem to be lackluster. If you really been paying attention, there haven't been a whole lot of scoring. It's been a lot of just weirdness from a football perspective. It's been really off. I mean, the time differences affects the players, and they're being over in a different country for a week or whatever. But they just don't seem to play like they play in the States. It seemed to be low scoring. Very odd things happen. So no Puka Nacua for the Rams. Yeah, I might hedge my bet on the Rams in Jaguars game. In all honesty, I do like a lot of Bears against the Saints defense. I do like that. I like Romeo Dobbs because DJ Moore might be hurt for this game. I think Luther Burton's a streaming option here. I think Cole Kmet or Kelsey Lovin hopefully can play well. Jardine Swift seems to be running the ball better after that rain game on Monday night. I like that. Hell, I like pretty much all the Chiefs against that Raiders defense as well. Rasheed Rice is coming back. That's a good one. I think Travis Kelce is a good streaming option tight end. Xavier Worthy, going, with him teaming with Rice being that deep threat. I like that. Yeah, so I like that. I don't like much of nothing going on in the Browns and Dolphins game. Don't like much of that, none of that. Talking about Jalen Coker earlier, it's been a stat on the Panthers. I like Ted McMillan against the Jets. They can't seem to get right there. Hopefully the Panthers can kind of keep things rolling there. I would hedge my bet against the Giants and Broncos because the Broncos can't seem to get right on offense, but their defense is playing lights out. So I would hedge my bet against Scam Cadaboo and Jackson Dart this week. They get after the quarterback like no other. I think they got 30 sacks already, some crazy like that. So Jackson Dart might have a rough week. Talking about the Panthers, not the Panthers, but the Packers going against the Cardinals. I like those matchups. I like Matthew Golden. I like Jazz Jacobs have a great week against the Cardinals for sure. Jordan Love, I like that. With no Fred Warner, I think Bijan Robinson and Drake London is going to have a carbon copy this week against the 49ers this week. And I think the Seattle Seahawks murdered the Texans in that game. I think Kenneth Walker and company, Jackson Smith-Njigba should have a good game, as well as Sam Darnold. So yeah, so I think those matchups are pretty solid, And the final one for me is the Patriots versus the Titans. New coach, still a lot of dysfunction in Tennessee, and Mike Vrabel is going back for a revenge game against the Titans. So look for the Patriots to be motivated, and they're going to put up a lot of points against the Titans. So Drake May, Keshaun Butte, Stephon Diggs, Hunter Henry, Trevion Henderson, all those guys. Yeah, they should have a good week. They should have a good week for sure. For sure. All right. So moving on down the line as we wrap the show up here, we always do our perfect lineup for the week. I'm giving you my best and brightest position, each position of players and who is going to flourish this week, and who is going to be the best matchup. So if you play best ball or you looking to have, or you kind of question who may be good or who not be good this week, I'm gonna give you my perfect lineup and who's going to be the best options for each position: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, flex, defense, kicker, the whole gamut. So I'm gonna give you my whole full lineup and who's going to play well this week. So for me, I'll talk about the Cowboys matchup against the Commanders. I think Jaden Daniels has a great game against the Cowboys. That Cowboys defense can't do anything as far as stopping anybody. I like that matchup. I like Josh Jacobs against the Cardinals. I mentioned that earlier. I like that. I like Jalen Warren against the Bengals. I think he's going to have a good game. Nico Collins should do pretty well, despite the Seahawks having a pretty good secondary. Their corners are banged up, so that's the only kind of thing give me pause. And I think Nico Collins is just very, very fantasy proof. Like no matter what they do offensively, he always seems to have numbers against anybody. So I'm gonna roll with Nico Collins as the Seahawks. I talk about Romeo Doomsday and DJ Moore being out. I think he has a great game against the Saints. Harold Fanning, another theme of the podcast. He's gonna be good against the Dolphins. I'm liking Devontae Adams in my flex against the Jaguars because there's no Puka. Like him. I like Jake Bates going against the Browns. I think that they're going to do pretty good from that perspective, him kicking. And the Denver Broncos against the Raiders. I mean, you lead the league with 30 sacks, and they're playing against the Raiders with the O-line having issues. I think the Raiders are going to have a rough time against the Broncos. So I'm taking the Broncos defense if I have them on my roster or if I'm playing best ball. I'm putting all these guys in my lineup, and I'm winning this week. That is a fact. That is the fact. So Jaden Daniels, Josh Jacobs, Jalen Warren, Nico Collins, Roma Doomsday, Harold Fanning Jr., Devontae Adams, Jake Bates, and the Denver Broncos defense. So if you have those guys, one or two or many, play them all and sleep well. Play them all and sleep well. All right, so that's going to do it for us this week, man. Like I said, we are about getting things done fast. If you want to get to that goal fast, the Lightning Fast Fantasy Football Podcast is where you want to be. So we're done with our content, man. Anybody that's in the chat, anybody that's watching this on YouTube or any facet that we're streaming from, please drop your questions in the chat if you got anything that you want to get answered right away. If you're looking for us any other facet, any other times, hit us up on socials. Lightning Fast FF on all platforms. Hit that subscribe button on the YouTube channel to boost our algorithm number so we can get this podcast moving to higher heights and deeper depths. Hit us up on TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. The Facebook one is an interesting one because we're getting our followers up on that page. Once we get to 100 followers on Facebook, we're allowed to stream on Facebook as well. So if you do have a Facebook account, please go to Facebook and follow our page, Lightning Fast FF, on Facebook. So search that and hit that follow button, and we'll get our numbers up. And we able to stream it to another platform. We need 100 followers. I think we got about 60, so we got about 40 away. So if you listen to this on replay or live, you got Facebook, go to that page and hit it up. Hit that follow button. It is free, doesn't cost you anything. So we can get those numbers up so we can stream on Facebook for our Facebook listeners as well. But yeah. So any questions in the chat, please let me know. And we'll be dropping content Thursday and Friday to get you ready for your Sunday matchups. And we'll keep this thing rolling, man. And hope everybody has a really good fantasy week. Get a W this week. Like I said, prep for next week because week 8 is going to be a heavy bye week. So get your waiver wires done now, to prep for next week. Maybe kind of look ahead to who you have on buys next week so you kind of get ahead of it because the waiver wire is going to be a feeding frenzy next week. I promise you that. So week 7, you only got 2 teams, the Ravens and the Bills. Next week is a plethora. It's the biggest bye week of the whole year. So yeah, get that done. And get your guys in the lineup, get your replacements done. And hopefully we have some success and get some W's, man. Again, people are starting off fast and they're going to have bye weeks and they're going to be vulnerable. You can slide right in there and get a dub and get your team on the right path to get to the playoffs. So we'll keep things rolling. And like I said, we're doing content each and every week. Hopefully Alex will be back with us next week, as he's on paternity leave, and we'll keep things flowing, man. But check out our shorts each and every day at 3 p.m. We drop it right here on our YouTube channel and on TikTok. Check that out. Drop a follow on our Facebook pages and, hit us up on Instagram or whatever platforms you use if you have any questions in between podcasts. But one more time for the hotline, if you need to drop us a voicemail, we have a hotline number. The number is 249-2220. Once again, it's 240-249-2220. So if you need to hit us up on for a voicemail perspective and leave your questions, and we'll either ask them on air or we'll respond to you in private. But yeah, man. So that's gonna do it for us this week, man. If nobody asks any more questions this week from a line of perspective, or if you think of something later on, hit us up on any of our platforms. We'll be ready to answer it for you. All right, man. So that's gonna do it for us. So in the meantime, between time, man, we'll be back next week. We're here each and every Wednesday night on this platform, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, bringing you live and direct the Lightning Fast Fantasy Live, which y'all content each and every day on YouTube at 3 p.m. Check that out. Get you right for each and every week for your fantasy matchups. Keep you all the updated information. And we'll be back next week, live and direct. But until then, I'm your boy, Coach Defense. And as always, you got to do one thing and one thing well. You got to step up to lock it down.